What's going on, people? This is Jonah Pittman back with another sports reaction. And as you can see from the title of the video, I'm going to be talking about Mitchell Trubisky and how he is the best option for the Chicago Bears. I will not be saying that he is the best option for the Bears over Deshaun Watson or Patrick Mahomes. What I'm just explaining to you Bears fans is that he is the best option for our Chicago Bears. And I'm going to start that with reason number one. Reason number one is the 2017 season, his rookie season. Despite all the hate that Trubisky had faced, even going into the season, even getting booed at a Bulls game, he performed as efficient as a rookie could perform at that time. Now, the backlash, I already know Bears fans are going to say that, yeah, but that did not translate to wins. That was because the offense was so horrible that year. The only weapons that Trubisky really had was Dontrell Inman and Tariq Cohen that year. And they was still close in a lot of games. There was a lot of one-score losses in 2017 that the Bears could have possibly won, but they just did not have the offense to be able to put up enough points to get the Bears the victory. Because remember, the Bears was still a top 10 defense in 2017. Everybody saw the potential in Trubisky that year. Everyone thought that he could be a very good quarterback for the Bears, and everyone knew right then and there that all he needed was a few more weapons to surround him, and everyone knew, along with this very good defense, and this before Khalil Mack even got to the team, that this team will be a very good team in 2018. And now on to reason number two, the 2018 season. He played in 14 games, and he was 11-3 in those 14 games. Trubisky completed 289 of his passes out of 434 passes. He had completed 66.6% of his passes. He had thrown for 3,223 yards. He had 24 touchdowns and 12 interceptions that season. And at that time, I felt, just like many Bear fans felt, that Trubisky is just getting better and better, and eventually he's going to blossom into the quarterback that we thought he was going to be, which I still think he's still climbing to right now, and actually would have showed it even more if Matt Nagy did not take him out this following season. But back to the 2018 season, once again, I felt like Trubisky performed excellent, and that was still with slight abysmal play calling early in the season, not running the football much, leaving Jordan Howard out to dry at that time, mainly getting the ball to Tariq Cohen, even though that made positive plays, but Jordan Howard could have definitely been more of a dominant rusher that year, and still could eclipse 1,000 yards that year, which he failed to do so as well. But back to Mitchell Trubisky. Anyways, in the playoffs, Mitchell Trubisky performed, to me having one of his best games of the season when he performed well in the playoffs and led the Bears all the way downfield. But of course, we know about the double doink. But despite the double doink, going into the 2009 season, that's what really made us believe in Trubisky even more. And going into the 2019 season, all we had to do was just basically replace the kicker. Even though we lost our defensive coordinator, we got Chuck Pagano that year, and we just thought that all we needed to do now is just repeat last year and just minus the kicker, because now we got a better kicker. Everything should be going right. And then the 2019 season hit, and this goes down to my reason number three. The 2019 season hit, and the entire team except Mitchell Trubisky and Allen Robinson regressed. At that time, David Montgomery was a rookie, so his involvement only corresponded with because the entire team regressed. First, it started with Anthony Miller. Anthony Miller couldn't catch the ball none the first 6-7 games of the season. You can throw the ball right to him while you're right in front of him, and he could have just still dropped the ball. Then right after that, the next culprit was Tariq Cohen, who had a fantastic 2018 season, did not train, did not try to improve or nothing, came into the 2019 season just thinking that he was going to have the same success because He just dominated like that. Didn't train everything, came in overweight, and just played horribly. Hands was horrible practically the entire season. Dropped passes, dropped touchdowns, dropped everything. And then Trey Burton dropped off completely. It was literally just the Allen Robinson and Mitchell Trubisky show majority of that season. Then right after that, the entire defense fell off, except for Akeem Hicks, who constantly suffered injuries that season and wound up suffering a season-ending injury with his elbow, and also Khalil Mack, whose stats dropped off because literally there was no other pass rushers there other than him. Then you have a few guys every blue moon that will come in and get a few sacks that wind up getting a contract with other teams that's no longer here. Nick Wachowski and also other players as well that's no longer here. Basically, Khalil Mack was the only pass rusher that season. Prince Amukamara was constantly getting burnt the entire season. Clinton Dix, other than those two interceptions that he got against his former team in Washington that season, he was basically almost a non-factor as well. And on top of that, it was just horrible play calling by both coaches on both sides of the field, but mainly offensively by Coach Matt Nagy. Coach Matt Nagy was the main reason why the Bears did not perform at their best that season, not Mitchell Trubisky. Now, when you look at Mitchell Trubisky numbers, you immediately see that he threw for less yards slightly, and he had a worser completion percentage. But if you actually watch the games and you actually remember all of the previous determining factors that I just mentioned to you, then you will know that Mitchell Trubisky actually played better in 2019 than he actually did his Pro Bowl season. It was just a simple fact that nobody other than Allen Robinson can basically catch that ball that season. If you factor in all of those catches that was dropped, the multiple touchdowns that was dropped, and all of the above, then Trubisky's stats will actually be a lot better. Now, if you look at Trubisky 2019 stats, he completed 326 passes out of 516 passes. He had 63.2% completion percentage. He threw for 3,138 yards. He had 17 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. Now, when you hear that stat line, you're going to be like, man, that don't sound flashy at all. But if you factor in all of those drops, then you think about those stats. The fact that he even threw 3,000 yards despite all those drops is amazing. The fact that Allen Robinson still wound up having over 1,000 yards receiving that season is amazing. The simple fact that the Bears was actually able to get 8 wins last season with Trubisky, despite the horrible offensive play calling two-thirds of the season, is amazing. And you have to give that man props for what he was able to do with this type of team last season. Now, if you take away 2/3 of those drops, for example, Trubisky throws closer to 3,600, possibly 3,700 yards, and he possibly still wind up with 24, 25 touchdowns. And he still throw less interceptions than he did in his 2018 Pro Bowl season. So actually, Trubisky would have actually had a way better stat line if the offense performed better and the play calling was better. And last but not least, now we transitioning over to reason number 4. The 2020 season, the reason why Trubisky is the best option for the Chicago Bears. Right now, Trubisky has a 4-2 record. Now, we know that Nick Foles basically won the game for him in Atlanta, and that's the reason why he started out 3-0. Without that, he possibly could have came back in that Atlanta game and fall short, and the Bears could have been 2-1. But he was 3-0 in that, lost 2 games. Now he just destroyed the Texans, so we know what his record is on that note. And so far, in 7 total games played, 6 games started, Mitchell Trubisky has 127 completions out of 199 passes, He has 63% completion percentage, and he's thrown for 1,336 yards, and he has 13 touchdowns and 5 interceptions so far this season. And here I go again, going with scenarios. Now, what if Mitchell Trubisky never was taken out? What if he was never benched for Nick Foles? And actually, based on Trubisky's stat line, I actually did the math on his current stat line of 1,336 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions in the 6 games that he's actually started. When I went over the numbers and did the projections, even to a 16 game, even if he completed a 16-game season, talking about this season, it would have been projected that Mitchell Trubisky would have actually thrown for 3,564 yards this season and a possible 28 to 30 touchdowns. Now, me personally, I don't think that Trubisky would have threw 28 to 30 touchdowns just based on that projection. I think he would have topped out at most 26 touchdowns passing and probably would have ran for 2 or 3 touchdowns throughout the season. And that would have accommodated somewhere between that 28 to 30 touchdown range. On top of that, I believe that if Trubisky played the entire season, the Bears beat the Rams, they beat the Saints, they beat the Titans, and they beat the Vikings. And before anyone say, whoa, 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 hold your horses, first off, we all know how good Trubisky performed against bad defenses. Every team I mentioned except the Rams had a bad defense, but the Rams left a lot of holes open for a quarterback to run like Trubisky would have taken off and got about 10, 15 yards multiple times. But Nick Foles can only get about 2 or 3 at the most because he's run as fast as a 65-year-old man. And I just believe that Trubisky legs, his running ability would have made a huge difference in that game. And I think that he would have hit Darnell Mooney a few times on a few of those wide open passes that Nick Foles just couldn't get to Darnell Mooney at that time. And I think he would have scored a few touchdowns and the Bears would have gotten a victory over the Rams. Much like the Saints, like I said before, the Titans, and also the Minnesota Vikings, where all we needed was just a smidge of offense, just a smidge of it, and the Bears would have won that game. And I believe that Trubisky would have gotten that victory as well. And also, I do believe that the Bears would have been battling Green Bay for that #1 spot in the division and also the #1 seed in the NFC as well. But of course, Green Bay will hold the tiebreaker because they did blow out the Bears in their matchup not too long ago. So they would be the leader in the division, and the Bears will hope for the Packers to basically lose a game in between, or if not that, the Bears win the game against Green Bay in the last game of the season. But basically what I'm saying is it will be best to stick with Trubisky long term and not draft a quarterback. Because I looked at the BYU quarterback, I watched him play Coastal Carolina, and I watched him play a few games after that. And I will say right now, he is not better than Trubisky right now. And the whole purpose of drafting a quarterback is to replace Trubisky right then and there. If you're going to draft a quarterback, you have to make sure the quarterback is better than Trubisky is right now. And he is definitely not. And because of that reason, the Bears will be better off sticking with Mitchell Trubisky and building that offensive line and probably even adding a little more depth to the middle linebacker position, because Danny Trevathan looks like he's basically lost it. He's getting beat constantly when it's time for him to be in pass protection. He is still one of the best tacklers in the NFL. But he get caught up in the wash too many times when teams run the football, and he gets beat too many times when he is in pass protection. So him being on that defense is more now of a liability than it was in 2018 and years prior before that. But basically what I'm saying is give Trubisky another chance and allow him to play a full season without taking him out. And I promise you, Bear fans, that Trubisky is going to perform his best the following season. And he's still putting on the best effort this season so far through the last 3 games of putting up 30 points per game. The Bears has not had an offensive output this well in a while. Yeah, you can say, oh, they're bad defenses. When the Bears played the Saints, the Titans, and Minnesota previously with Nick Foles, that was three horrible defenses. The Bears could not score any points whatsoever, not on a consistent basis. Only the Saints game, they put up 23 points, but that was a lackluster game with Nick Foles in it. And I believe that the Bears score more points with Mitchell Trubisky in that game, especially against the Titans in Minnesota, who had even worse defenses than the Saints. And the Bears could not move the ball whatsoever until it was almost at the end of the game. So all I'm saying with that, keep in mind that Trubisky is a way better quarterback than Nick Foles. Overall, only thing that Nick Foles has over Trubisky is slightly better decision making skills. When I say slightly because we have seen Nick Foles make some boneheaded throws, a lot of boneheaded throws this season. So his decision making skills is slightly better than Trubisky, and his deep ball skills and throwing the football is slightly better than Trubisky, because we've seen a lot of deep ball throws that was short or overthrowing a receiver this season as well from Nick Foles. So he is not that much better than Trubisky in that regards. And everything else, Trubisky can make the same type of throws than Nick Foles can, and sometimes even better. And now after that, what you have in mobility. Trubisky is way better than Nick Foles in that we all seen Nick Foles play already throughout his entire career. He is a statue. He needs an elite offensive line and an elite running game in order for him to be successful. If he does not have that, he's done for. If anything, if any one of those things is not elite. If it's very good, it's not going to have the same success. He needs both to be elite. And just so happenly, when he had two of his best career years, he's basically was on the elite squad, and in both times. Other than that, he cannot perform. But we've seen Trubisky with this same squad that has not been consistent over the past couple of seasons still perform at a high level, and so many fans is just so willing to get rid of a good player because they're not performing at the standards of what they seen of the two previous quarterbacks, Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. You cannot base that on that. You have to base that on, is he winning you games and is he being efficient? That's what he is doing. He is winning you games and he is being efficient. He is basically Cal Orton with legs. That's who Trubisky is. He's Cal Orton with legs. He's going to win you the games. It's not always going to be pretty, but he's going to win you the games, and he's going to be efficient 9 times out of 10, and he's going to throw you a touchdown or two. And that's what you want out of your quarterback. You don't always need your quarterback to throw for 500 yards, 3-4 touchdowns every other game, or at least throw 2 of them every game. It's best to have your quarterback be efficient enough to get you the wins and have a dominant defense that can back up your offense, and knowing that your offense is still capable of putting up somewhere between 24 and 30 points per game, which is going to get you the win in most games, especially when you have a defense like Chicago Bears do have. Basically, what I'm saying is, Bear fans, give this man a chance. He has not hit his ceiling yet. He is a season or two from basically doing what Leonard Floyd is doing with the Rams, having a breakout season. That's what Trubisky is. He is a season or two away. And I believe that if it wasn't for him being taken out, he would have showed people more this season, and then would have had an even bigger year the following season. Do not allow the Bears to let him go, because we're going to regret it. But anyways, this video is long enough. But before I get off, just know, for all you haters of Mitchell Trubisky, all you Bear fans that keep flip-flopping along with the media that at first said get rid of Trubisky and now you want him back, fuck all of y'all, because all of y'all are just flip-flopping ass people, and you don't even know why you even a Bear fan, because you're supposed to be down with the players that you have. And not only that, look at the bigger picture and actually watch the game instead of just looking at the stats all day. But this is Jonah Pimney back with another sports reaction. Once again, reminding you of the reason why Mitchell Trubisky is the best option for the Chicago Bears. All right, people. Peace out.